Sixth grade lesson 5.4, we're looking at percent of a quantity. So we've been working on percent, and now we're going to find percents of certain amounts, certain numbers. So let's go ahead and get into this. Before we get into the pages that the lesson covers, let's do a quick reminder about making percents into decimals, because that's a tool that we'll need. So in a previous lesson, we talked about changing percents to decimals. 25% is rewritten as 25% or 25 out of 100. That's a division problem, 25 divided by 100, 25 divided by 100. And when you divide, 100 does not go into 2, nor does it go into 25. Put the decimal, add the 0. 100 into 250 goes in twice for 200. Carry down the 5 and the 0. And the next 0. 100 into 500 goes in 5 times, and then you end up with 0.25. And what we realized after we learned these steps is always it ends up that way because it's always being divided by 100. So we can take that hidden decimal and move it 2 times and 2 times only, and it must be 2 times because of the 2 zeros being divided by a base 10 number. 2 times, and I get 0.25. If I had something like 5%, my decimal is hidden in the shadows there. I must move it 2 times. 1, oopsie, there's not a spot. Create 1 so that you can get it there 2 times, and you would get 0.05. So always 2 times to the left to make a percent into a decimal. The other thing I want to point out is a value of another number. In that, of is a multiply word. Oh, let me explain that better. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is a value of another value. In that sort of scenario, of is a multiply word. Here's an example. 1/2 of 12 is the same as 1/2 times 12. And if we were to do the calculations in your brain, you can think 1/2 of 12. If I have 12 candy bars and I only get to eat half of them, I get 6, right? If we multiplied those, we make them into fractions, cross, reduce, multiply straight across. So when you see of, we are doing multiplication. So those two things we need to keep in mind. Of would be multiplication, a word, and changing our percents into decimals. All right, let's get into it. All right, we have this story of a typical family of 4 who uses about 400 gallons of water each day, and 30% of this water is for outdoor activities such as gardening. How many gallons of water does a typical family of 4 use each day for outdoor activities? So you read the question. Let's underline the question. How many gallons of water does a typical family of 4 use each day for outdoor activities? Let's go circle the information they gave us. A family of 4 uses about 400 gallons of water each day in total. 30% of that tends to be for outdoor use. So what we want to know is what is 30% of 400? Will the number of gallons of water for outdoor activities be greater than or less than 200 gallons? And that's a good important thing to think about. If they use 400 gallons in the day, which is a lot of water, don't you think? Okay, anyways, if they use 400 gallons each day, remember 50% would be half, right? So 50% would be half of 400, 200 gallons. 30% is less than 50%. So we know that it's going to be less than 200 gallons. So we do use a lot of our reasoning skills as we get comfortable with this. So do we think it's going to be greater than or less than? Less than, because half is 50%, which was 200 gallons. So, and 30% is less than that. All right. That being said, let's go on to their first way. So they're going to give us 2 ways we can solve this, and your brain is going to connect with one of them. So we'll see which one your brain likes best. They say you can use ratio reasoning. We can draw a bar model. We know that 100% is broken. We can break those into 10 equal pieces. That's nice and easy. 10%, 20%, 30, on and on to 100%. There would be 10 pieces, right? Because we know 10 times 10 is 100. Now we're going to look at those 10 equal pieces. And so we would find the value of 10% of 400. Remember, we need 30%, but we're going to do it 1/10 at a time. So 10% or 1 out of 10, 1 out of 100 or 1 out of 10, once you reduce it, of 400 is going to be 1 times 400 and 10 times 1 because we changed that to a fraction. So that will be 10. And then we reduce that down because 10 divides evenly into both of those numbers. That would leave us with 40 over 1. So what we learn is that 40 gallons is 1/10 amount. All right, but we know 30% is how much they use. So we're going to do 40 gallons for the 3 blocks of that. And they did 30% of 400 is 3 times 40 that we found is for one of those blocks, 1/10 of the whole 100. And that's going to give us 120 gallons. So that was one way that they explained that we could do this. And if that helps you to break it down and use a smaller number, that's fantastic. Then that's a tool that you can use. I personally like the another way that they're about to show us, but you may not, and that's okay. Some of you will, some of you won't. Use the one that works for you. So on the same question, they say, okay, well, you can find 30% of 400 simply by multiplying because it's 30% of 400. So I can write the percent as a rate per 100. 30%, that's what they changed it to, times 400. And then once I've done that, I use the skills, change that to a fraction, cross reduce. And if you notice right here, 100 goes into both 100 and 400. So let's knock those down a bit. 100 goes into 100 once, and 100 goes into 400 4 times. And now I'm going to do 30 times 4, which is 120, over 1 times 1, which is 1. And really what that is 120 gallons. So 30% of 400 is 120 gallons. So to me, I like to use that one. There's another version that we'll see in a moment too. But either one of those, the one I'll show you soon and this one, are nice and interchangeable to me. My brain can make sense of it pretty well, especially if this number over here is easy to reduce with that 100 down there. So something to consider. Do you like the bar model? Did you like this one better? Why did you like those better? So things to think about in your brain. So let's look at the next example. We have Charla, who earns $4,000 per month. She spends 40% of her salary on rent and 15% of her salary on groceries. How much money does Charla have left for other expenses? Let's underline the question. How much money does Charla have left for other expenses? Now let's go circle the information they gave us. We know she makes $4,000 per month. She spends 40% on rent, 15% on groceries, and how much does she have left? Okay, let's draw a picture of that. Let's just draw a picture of how much she gets in each month in money. Then we know that 40% of that goes to rent out, and then 15% of that goes out to groceries. And we're curious about what's left. What will be left after those come out? So we have a couple of steps we need to take care of. We need to first, in order to know what's left, we need to first decide how much came out. So we know that 40% out is out for rent. And let's add to that the 15% that goes out for groceries as well. 15%. 40% plus 15% is a total of how much percent? 55%. Now, when we're talking about percents, we're always talking about out of 100. So all of this before we started taking anything out was 100% of her income. We're pulling 55% out of that. So let's take the 100% and pull the 55% out of that, because that's going to tell us what's left in here. That's the question. How much is left for other expenses? Now, if they ask us how much does she spend on rent and groceries, what's the percent? Or how much money does she spend on rent and groceries? Then we would do 55% of 4,000. But they aren't asking us that. They're asking how much is left here after that's pulled out. So we're taking the 55% out that goes away, And this 45% that's left is what she'll have left for other things. So we just have to know what we're reasoning through. Two ways to do this. We can do it like they showed us in the previous example. Well, three ways, honestly. You could do the bar thing if that really worked for you. You could do the fraction thing. I'll do that one with you real quick. 45% is the same as 45 over 100, 45%. And then 45% of 4,000 is 45%. Oops, I don't need another zero there. There we go. Times 4,000 over 1. I can cross reduce and take some zeros off. 100 goes into 100 once, and 100 goes into 4,000 40 times. Just takes 2 zeros off there. And then I would do 45 times 40 for the answer to get $1,800. So a final way is using what you learned before, where we take those percents, 45%, and I just go ahead and change that to a decimal, 2 spots over on that decimal that was hidden there, 0.45, and I multiply that times 4,000. So if you would rather, you can do that. You're going to get all kinds of zeros here. That's okay. Times 0.45, sorry. 0, 0, 0, 0, 16, 0, 0, 0, 0, 8, 1. 2 decimals in, 2 babies in the car there, 2 babies in the car there, and there I get 1,800. I get the same answer. So your choices, if you want to use just the multiplication and not the bar graph thing, is to say, all right, I'm going to make it a fraction and multiply it by 4,000, cross reduce if it works. Or I can make that 45% a decimal and just go ahead and multiply it by the other number that we're looking for. So those are our options on that. You can also use the bar graph, break it into tenths, 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, and so on. But then we would need to do that times 4.5 whenever you found that. So for me, either changing to a fraction and multiplying, or even easier, especially at the point in time where you can use a calculator, is just get in the habit of moving that decimal twice over to change it from a percent to a decimal, and then multiplying it by the number that's there. So that's really all this lesson is covering. So go ahead and move forward there, and let's see how you do.